Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm here today to share a card using the brand new September 2019 Kit of the Month from Unity Stamp Company. I'm also going to be using some of the beautiful new pattern papers that Unity just released. This is the Rustic Textiles collection. There's 25 sheets, each of 5 different patterns. I'm choosing kind of that rustic craft plaid, trimming it down to the size of an A2 card. And then I'm just using an oval metal die to create a template and drawing around it with a pencil. You can use anything. You can do this in any shape. The oval just worked really well for me. Cut out a little hole in the center that's going to allow your fingers to get in there, and then use that as a kind of a guideline for the oval just to kind of tear around. And I'm trying to tear just a little bit over that edge, and you can see just a little bit at a time. And when that middle part gets too big and gets in my way, I just use scissors to kind of trim it off. And look at that. Isn't that fun? You get a perfect oval, but with that torn rustic edge that I think is super fun. All right, we're going to use that fun reindeer image from the new kit, and I decided to do it to create a window. So I'm using some vellum, and I'm going to heat emboss that image on a little bit of vellum. I'm using just clear watermark ink there to stamp that, and I'm going to emboss it with some white embossing powder. And even though I ran my powder tool over it before I started, I think I had some moisture or oils on my hand, so I ended up with a little extra embossing powder. A quick way to just gently get that off is with a clean dry paintbrush, and you can just kind of brush off that excess powder so that when you heat it with your heat gun, you don't have to worry about any of that extra stuff sticking around and getting in your way. All right, I quickly heat set that with my heat gun, and then I'm going to tuck that behind my window. I needed to trim my vellum down a little. I left it too big so I could end up with it centered where I want. And then I have a white card base, and I use the next size up of my oval dies. You don't have to do this step. I just decided it'd be fun to have the whole window go through from the front of the card. You could also just adhere this straight over a white card base. You could even turn it into a shaker or pop it up on foam just for dimension on there as well. But you can see when I adhere this in place, because I die cut that window in the card base using the larger size die, that way it's not going to show any of that card base from the front of the card, and a little bit of that torn edge is going to show around from the back, but it still looks kind of fun that way anyway. Now I didn't want my adhesive to go over the edges. As you can see on that card base, the oval goes fairly close to the edges, so I decided to use some really thin strips of adhesive, and I have this score tape in an 1/8 inch wide, so that ended up being perfect just to go right around the edges to adhere in place. And once I have that popped in place, see how you can see that edge from the inside, but it works, and it just kind of looks almost like a little bit of frost on the window anyway, which I think works. This is kind of pretty. All right, I grabbed a sentiment from the kit, and I'm going to heat emboss that on some black cardstock. I know I do that all the time. It's one of my favorite techniques. I just love how sentiments pop so crisp and white on a bit of black cardstock like that. So it's one of my favorite techniques. Now this is kind of a wide sentiment, so once I've heat set it, I'm going to trim it down, make sure it's in a nice thin strip. But then I'm going to trim that strip down into little sections of words. Now it's 4 words, but the last 2 words are a little shorter than the first 2, so I kept those 2 grouped together. And I also kind of like these sentiment strips in odd number groups, so that worked a little better than just having 4 of them. I was able to keep it to an odd number of 3, and I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back, so when I put them on, it'll pop them up off the back just a little bit for just a touch of dimension, which is kind of fun. Now, something I didn't fully think through, actually before I do that, I did go ahead and tie on some jute string along the bottom of this as well in black. It's kind of a good rustic finish. But in just a minute, you'll see the photo of the inside, or I'll kind of show you the inside. And notice how the foam adhesive from those sentiments kind of shows through on the inside. Yeah, I didn't think about that right at the time, but when I was finishing and photographing, I grabbed a little bit of gold glitter washi tape, and I trim that into thin strips, as you can see right there, and I use that just to kind of cover it up from the inside. So it just adds a little fun touch on the inside and also helps cover that up just a little bit. Thanks so much for coming by today. I hope you have a wonderful day.